This Gemara in Succah Daf Lamed Vav. All the learning for the month of Elul has been generously sponsored as Zecher Nishmas Esther Rizel Basra Meir, whose yahrzeit was this past week. Her neshama should have an aliyah, and she should continue to ascend higher and higher heights b'schus the learning of the entire Chabura. Of course, our Lochelim Man V'Veiga Chaim Yisar Sham Sivan Reisa Sarbas Knendel Ita Basim As Chaysei Yisrael Mendel Yitzmet Shalei Shomas Amiv Shavigu Shulchana Shmuel Ben Tiadinim Chanerizim Chaim Yitzil Brachas of Musa Timilim Sheminasi V'Veiga Yorha V'Chelas Yivur Nazil Huva Rivka Bas Basheva, Naphtali Ziv Mechlester, B'Sol Shachali Yisrael, as well as Chashirach B'Yisrael Chaim Devayra, and Shir Miriam Bas Rizal Gittel. We pick it up at the bottom of Lamed Hey Amid Beis, middle of discussing the different psulim of an esrog. We finished yesterday's discussion with the Chazals if there's a splotch on the esrog and the different opinions, whether it has to be in the majority, whether if there's two splotches they add together. And now we continue, and of course we finish with the all so important rule of Rava. And let's just highlight that one more time, 5 lines at the bottom. That if it's on the chaitim, if it's on the nose of the esrog, then it's possible, even a mashu. Very, very important halacha. Part of the reason that, of course, everyone knows when you look at an esrog, you look at the top more carefully than the rest of the esrog. And of course, one last time, apologies for the lateness of the daf. Baruch Hashem, I believe we're back up on the regular schedule, and Amir Hashem, we should continue that way. And of course, if anyone wants the WhatsApp option, Baruch Hashem, many people have enjoyed the user-friendly ability to receive the share directly to their phone. The YouTube link actually is there as well. You can watch it in WhatsApp. It's a very nice system for those that appreciate it. Says the Gemara, 4 lines from the bottom, not la pitmasai. If the pitam was removed, Tana Rav Yitzchak taught, says the Gemara, that what is the case that when the pitam is moved as puzzle is that it was removed on purpose. If the pitam was removed on purpose, excuse me, not b'chavanasai. I read it absolutely incorrectly. One more time. Nala buchnasai. That Rav Elazar explains what does it mean pitmasai. It means buchmasai. It means the pestle, referring to the tip of the esrog. That is exactly what's going on over here. There's the base of the pin, there's the top of the pitum, and that is what the Gemara is saying, that when it says that it's pestle, the buchnasai, as we've had in the Gemara in Shabbos, that the buchan is when you crush items with the pestle. That's what Yisrael ben Elazar is teaching us, that it's possible only if the base of the pitum is missing, not if the top of the pitum is missing, and we'll see a picture about this in one moment. Niklaf, we said the esrog is peeled, it's a problem. Amar Rava Hayas Reiga, the Iglad Ki Hani, says Rava, if we have an esrog that was peeled to the level, the Iglad Ki Hina Sumka Kshira Sumka, till it's like a reddened date, says Rava, it is still kosher. Not that it's peeled, this esrog is discolored. One more time. It's peeled and thereby became discolored till it's red. It's going to still be kosher. Ask the Gemara the obvious question: but our Mishnah said if it's peeled, it's possible. Answers the Gemara loikasha. Turning over to today's daf of Lamed Vav Amud Aleph, says the Gemara loikasha ha bekula ha b'mixasa. That when we said if the entire esrog is peeled, that's when it's possible. If a portion of the esrog is peeled, then it's going to be kosher, as long as and that is what the chiddush that we're learning right now. Says the Gemara, let's just begin the next piece, then we'll see some beautiful pictures. Nistak, Nikta, Nikev, what did the Mishnah teach? Mishnah taught if it was split open, or if it was punctured, and it's missing a little bit, then it's possible. But the Mishnah said if it's not missing anything, even though there's a puncture, it's going to be kosher. Says the Gemara, Tani Ula Bar Chanina, Nikev, Nekev, Mefulash. Now what does it mean, a hole? It means a Nekev, Mefulash, a hole that goes entirely through. Like the word we had, a Mavi, Mefulash, a thorough way that goes from side to side. Over here means a hole goes all the way through. Then what does the halacha says? Then it's possible if it's any size. However, if the hole doesn't go all the way through, then b'k'isser, it's only possible if it's the size of a isser. Let's take a moment to see some pictures. First of all, we're going to go back a little bit and see some of the pictures of the Mishnah. This is esrog ayavesh. This is the esrog, like we learned yesterday, that the chazos, you see the discoloration on the majority of the esrog. We continue with what we learned today, the nala pitamasai, that you see over here, that the pitam, the top part, is removed, and here is you see nala pitamasai. This is a machlaikas, what is called the buchnasai, which part of the pitam has to be removed to be possible. And over here, again, each portion is slightly different to machlaikas. We're not going to delve into that right now. This is where we're up to right now, niklaf. As you see so beautifully that the esrog is being peeled. So if a portion of it is peeled, that was the first case that we said, we answered that the difference is going to be if it's fully peeled or not. And here's another part that niklaf is that it's peeled. Continues the Gemara into our case of nistak. If the esrog is cracked, so we said it depends whether the hole goes all the way through. Over here you see nikav v'chaser kolshu. If you have a little hole, but it goes all the way through, it's possible. As you see so beautifully illustrated over here, the hole goes directly through the esrog. Even if it's a teeny little hole, it's going to be possible. But if not, then it has to have the size of an isser, the size of a coin. Says the Gemara by Rava. 3 lines on the top. By Rava, no dai be'esrog. Says Rava, what happens if it occurred in an esrog simane treifa? The signs of a treifa. Mahu. What is the halacha? Treifa, we know our halacha is primarily by an animal. We say that this is a sign that the animal cannot live. It's not valid. It's going to die on its own. Says the Gemara, of course, that doesn't really apply to an esrog. The point of the question is, what if it has a defect? What if there's an issue similar to the defect of an esrog? Is that itself going to be an issue? Says the Gemara, might come by which case, which treifa issue are you asking? Ineklav, you're asking about peel tanina. We learned that. Ine está cracked tanina. Ine missing tanina. We learned that. Can't come by so as the Gemara, the question is, that explains Reya, when we have the lung, shenishbecha kikita and kshira. If you have a lung that can be poured out like a flask of water, it's kosher and it's not treifa. Ve'amar Rava, and on that Rava explained, v'hu dekaima disipnuha. Says Rava, it's only if the bronchial tubes are intact, then it's going to be kosher. If these bronchial tubes are not intact, then it's going to be a treifa. So now, what's the question? Halacha in our case, what is halacha? Meaning, what's the question? The Gemara explains. Tel mahasa by an animal who shalit be'avira. There's no air the air does not have an impact on it because the lung is inside your body, so the air doesn't touch the lung hadar beria, and therefore, what's going to happen? It's that the flesh is going to regenerate, it's going to come back to itself. And therefore, that's the reason why when we have this issue in a lung, as long as the bronchial tubes are intact, as long as the lung is still functioning, even though there is an issue that it's very clear, still says the Gemara, it's going to be allowed. However, the question is, by here in Esrog, that's in air. So if you have the same issue by an Esrog, perhaps what's going to happen is, since it's exposed to the animal elements, it's going to rot, and therefore it's going to make a basal. And that was the question. If we have a similar defect to the lung of an animal by an esrog, do we say that an esrog is inherently different because it's exposed to the air and therefore quickly rot? Or do we say, no, that it's going to be the same halacha as we find by the lung, and it's going to be kosher? And again, the case is that one of the outer membranes dissolved, but the inner membrane is still there, but it flows directly from one to another. So says the Gemara, let's bring a rayo. Tashema, esroig, tafuach, saruach. If we have an esrog that is decayed or rotted, kavash, shalok, we have an esrog which is pickled, shalok, it's cooked. Kushi, it's a black esrog. Lavan, it's a white esrog. Menumar, it's a spotted esrog, puzzle. Esrog kikadur, but if you have an esrog that's like a ball, puzzle, it's puzzle. Even a twin esrog is puzzle. Esrog HaBaiser continues the Breiser, all the list of it. Sulam in the Esrog. Esrog HaBaiser. The unripe esrog is at the earlier stages like Baiser. Rav Kiva Baiser v'cham machshirim. Next case, Gadol b'tfas. If the esrog is grown inside a mold, ve'asai kimin beri achers, and it now looks like a different creature because it grew in a mold and now it doesn't look like an esrog anymore. As well, puzzle, it's going to be puzzle. End of Breiser. Says the Gemara. For this rice, I'll bring you a raya. What we see in this rice, tafuach saruach. If the esrog is rotted and decayed, now the Gemara says, "My love, tafuach mi bachutz, saruach mivnim." Says the Gemara, tafuach means on the outside. What saruach mean on the inside? So says the Gemara, we see that when you have this esrog, similar to the lung, that the outside flesh is decayed, it's dissolved, it's not there. By the lung, it's kosher because it's an internal organ; it'll regrow. But by an esrog, we see clearly from the brayso, seemingly that is the case of tafuach, of decayed, and therefore it's a raya. It's going to be parcel. Answers Gemara alone, no raya. Really, both tafuach and saruach are both talking about where they spoil from the outside. V'lo gasha, and it's not a question. Why not? Ha de tafach avagav v'lo sarach. Ha de sarach avagav v'lo tafach. When does it mean when it's tafuach, it's decayed? It means it's parcel even where it's not saruach, it's not decayed, and so it doesn't rot. And similarly, what does it mean that it's going to be rotted? It's even though it did not decay, and therefore we do not necessarily have a right to our question. Our old question was, if you have an esrog that the outer membrane is not there, but it's still a hole in one piece, do we say that because it's going to rot over time, it's going to be possible or not? We thought we had a right for this price that says that esrog tafuach and taruach, and to the Gemara, it's no right. They both can be talking about external issues, and therefore there's no right to our case. Amar Mar. So the question stays unanswered. The question that if you have an esrog that the outer membrane is missing, similar to the lung, is it going to be kosher? The Gemara does not answer it. But Amar Mar, let's go into the previous price. Esrog kushi pasul blastic, or is it pasul? Vatani kushi kosher. The other price says it's kosher. Answers the Gemara, but doimer kushi, excuse me, is pasul. If it's similar to kushi, it's pasul. Amar Abaye. When our Mishnah said it's kosher, it's going to be when it is. When our Mishnah said it's possible, it's going to be when it's doime lakushi, and that's how we'll answer up the contradiction. Tanan. Rava Amar, Rava gives a different answer. Lo kasha. Hala and Bahalahu. One is by us in Babel. Halahu is one in Eretz Yisrael, and that's going to be the discrepancy between halacha will depend upon where you are. Now we continue quoting that Bryce Esrog Abayser, an immature, not ripe Esrog. Rav Akiva Baisel Cham Machshir. Rav Akiva Rav Shmuel, Rav Shimon, excuse me, Amar Davar Echad. Says Rabba, Rav Akiva and Rav Shimon say one halacha. Rav Akiva Hadamar, and like we just said, that if you have an Esrog, the stage of Baiser, an early unripe stage, it's going to be basel. Says Rabba, Rav Shimon says the same halacha. What's Rav Shimon? Rav Shimon Mahi, the time Rav Shimon Poiter says Roigim mi bekoitanon. Rav Shimon said an esrog is potter if it is at a very small stage when it comes to their meiser obligation, and therefore Rav Shimon is saying the same halacha that Rav Akiva said, that there's not going to be any chiyah meiser until it is a bit more grown, and therefore Rav Shimon is learning that the esrog is going to be incomplete until it fully grows, just like Rav Akiva, that said the esrog of Baiser does not have the same status as an esrog and cannot be used for the mitzvah. But Amar Lei Abaye says, Abaye, 1 second. Del Malahi, maybe Rabba, you came along and you said a moment ago that Rav Akiva and Rav Shimon Amru Davar Echer. Says Abaye, maybe not. Amar Lei Abaye, Del Malahi, Ad Kan Lo Kama Rav Akiva Hacha. Rav Akiva only said his halacha over here to be non hadar. Of course, by an esrog is a different halacha. We can't equate the halachas of esrog to the halachas that we know about meiser. For what reason? Because an esrog needs to be a hadar, and veleka, and it's not hadar. It's not beautiful. Avul hasam kirabanan svirle. But maybe over there they hold like the rabbanan, and therefore there's no raya. And similarly, inami ad kan lekamar Rav Shimon also. And similarly, we can't equate it to Rav Shimon. Why not? Because maybe Rav Shimon only says halacha over there. Ela d'chsev es aser ta'aser. Es kol tevu asarecha. That you have to take off all the meisters from all of your plantings. What does that mean? What do we learn out from the pasuk? Kederech shnei adam moitzian lizriya. You have to take a meister like people take out from the field for planting, which means when it's fully developed. But therefore, not necessarily the two halachas are equated to each other. Avol hacha perhaps karban and tzvirle. So it says Abaye, you Rabba wanted to equate the machlokes between the machlokes and Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara, not necessarily do Rav Shimon and Rav Akiva argue about this point at all. And similarly, the Gemara continues on Amabez Sulei Midi, and nothing more. There's nothing else. Sulamidi, and there's nothing else, meaning perhaps Rav Akiva and Rav Shimon have nothing to do with each other, and therefore Rabba, you're incorrect in assuming that it is the same machlokes. And now we continue to the next part of the brisa. Again, we're not quoting a Mishnah, quoting the next section of the brisa. We said if the esrog grew in a form, in a mold, and it now looks like a different item, acheres is puzzle. Amar Rava, 2 lines on the tableau, Shana Kimin Beria acheres. Looks like another form, but if it looks like its own shape, it still looks like an esrog, it's going to be kosher. Asks the Gemara the obvious question, Pshita, Kimin Beria Cheres Tanan. What did the Mishnah say? If it looks like something else, so you come along and explain, but if it looks like itself, it's kosher. Shkoyach. Said if it looks like something else. Answers the Gemara, like Sricha, Davida. Dafe. The case is where the esrog was made with many different planks, and therefore, even though it looks a little bit different, it's still going to be kosher. That's the chiddush, that it still looks like its own form, and that's going to be the case, that it's going to be kosher. Itmar says the Gemara, let's deal with one last case of esrog. Esrog shenakvua achbarim. Mice running around the house. And what happened? They take a little nibble of your esrog. What's the status? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav, Ein Zeh Hodar. It's not beautiful. That's not a beautiful esrog. A mice nibble through it. Therefore, it is possible. Eini? Ask Mar, really? Is this so? Rav Chanina matvel ba. The nothing ba. Rav Chanina would dip his esrog in sauce and take a bite out of it. And then nothing ba, he would still use it. So we see an esrog that has a bite mark in it, it's still kosher, which is usually a bit of a point everyone realizes right now. We don't have to be so OCD crazy about our esrogim. If we see even allowed a little bite to be taken out, it's still going to be kosher. But either way, ask the Gemara what's going on. You just told me if mice eat it, it's possible. Here we see if he eats it, it's kosher. Answers the Gemara. Well, Rav Chanina, but and according to Rav Chanina, question number 2, kasha mas nisan. The Mishnah is not ishver, because the Mishnah says if the esrog is missing anything, it's possible. And you, Rav Chanina, would take a bite out of the esrog. Obviously, he was missing something. Answers the Gemara. Bish lama mas nisan. Rav Chanina like kasha. Can't ask Rav Chanina why not come into reach, come into sheni. Only on the first day is there an issue with it being lacking, deficient, chaser, and that's when the Mishnah says it's possible. But all other days, that's when Rav Chanina would take a bite out of it and still be kasha. El Rav kasha says the Gemara kasha is to Rav, because Rav says that if the mice nibbled on it, what's the halach? Rav says not hodor. What's the problem? We see from Rav Chanina that you're allowed to do that. Rav responds, shiny achbarim demi. The teretz you're all thinking. If Rav Chanina takes a bite of my esrog, no. But if a mouse takes a bite of my esrog, that's quite ma'os, that's quite disgusting, and one would not be so happy about that. That is why it is possible. This is beautiful. Now the Gemara flips it. Says even if a mouse nibbled on it, it's kosher. You know why? Just like Rav Chanina nibbled on it. By asking Rav Chanina kasha masisa, what about the Mishnah? Likasha can be the Rishon kan beyond time shady. The same Gemara, just reworded in a slightly different form. And now we continue. That what was the next case? The Mishnah Esrog Katan, a small Esrog ben a machlekes. Rameir and Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says the size of a walnut is kosher. Rameir. Yehuda says that has to be at least the size of an egg. Amar Rav bar Papa. Kamachlekes kan kach machlekes ba'avonim mikorzolis. Says Rav from bar Papa. The same machlekes over here, whether an esrog has to be the size of a walnut, the size of an egg, is the same machlekes regarding these stones. We learned about this in Gemara and Brachas. The stones that you're carrying up to the bathroom on Shabbos to wipe yourself with, what is the size of those stones? Says from Bar Papa, it's the same machlokes. They tie them to the brayso b'Shabbos. Gimel avanim mikorzolis, 3 mikorzolis stones. One is allowed to be mutal achmas beis hakisei. You're allowed to bring into the beis hakisei. Kamashun. How big are the stones? Rameir and Merkagos, if you don't remember, so the same machlekes. Rameir and Rabbi Yehuda definitely contribute a question. Where do we find going to the bathroom in the Gemara and Sukkah? It's equating the size of an esrog to the small size of walnut or egg. Similarly, is the size to bring the stones into the bathroom on Shabbos. And the Mishnah concluded with Begadol Kadesh Yecha is a large esrog, be a machlekes, whether you could have 2 in one hand or 1 in 2 hands. Tanya learned to the Brayso Amar Rav Yossi Ma'aser Rav Akiva. There's a story of Rav Akiva Shabbat the Beis HaKnesses Vesrog Shal Kaftoi, and the esrog was Al Kaftoi, and the esrog was on his shoulder, a massive esrog. Amar Rav Yehuda said Rav Yehuda Misham Raya. Want to bring a raya from Rav Akiva? Afim Amar Loi Ein Zeh Hodar. They told Rav Akiva, what are you doing? Get your esrog off your shoulder. That is not beautiful. Let's see some beautiful pictures over here. Natal Uksai, which on yesterday was the stem on the bottom. And now we can continue. This was esrog Kushi, our black esrog, and a Yarki Karsi. This is the Gemara we just saw. If that's the size of a walnut, or the esrog the size of an egg, the 2 minim shirim between Rameir and Rav Yehuda. And this is what we just concluded. If it's large enough to hold 2 in one hand or 1 in 2 hands, and not on your shoulder, that would not be the proper case. Says the Mishnah, Ein oidin as halulav el b'mina itivir Rav Yehuda. Hopefully it should sound familiar. Says the Mishnah, how do you do the igud? How do you bind up the lulav? Says Rav Yehuda, only b'mina, only with the same type of the lulav itself. Rameir Aimer, even allowed to use a string. They would bind up their lulavim with gold fibers and no, really they would buy it together with their own type with the lulav, and on top of that they just put on the gold for decoration. But it's not a raya per se. They could use something else aside for the min for the binding, because underneath they had the min and only at top they put the gold for beautification purposes. Amar Rava, afilu b'tzeva, afilu be'ikr dedikla. Says Rava, you know what it means? B'minai. It means you even allowed to tie it together with the trunk of with an ivy from the trunk of the palm tree, or ikarai with a ship of bark from the Dekel tree. Vamar Rav, and Rav continues, and he says, "My time with Rav Yehuda. Where did Rav Yehuda get this in? That you even where did Rav Yehuda? Excuse me, my time with Rav Yehuda. Kasava, you know why? Because lulav tzarich again. You have to tie up your lulav, and that is where Rav Yehuda got this in. Excuse me, and if you bring another min, it's going to be 5 minim. Again, the Mishnah said that what does Rav Yehuda hold? Rav Yehuda holds you have to tie it with its own min. Says the Gemara, where did Rav Yehuda get this from? You know where we got this from? Because the tying is integral. We've had this before. It isn't its own min, so we consider it a separate entity. You have 5 items in your lulav and Esther. You only let have 4. Vamar Rava, and Rava continues. Man, immediately where do I know this? Siva Ikra, the Dikla, Mina de Lulavaha. How do I know that even the ivy on the trunk of the tree or the piece of the bark itself is considered a min, a type of the lulav, and therefore you can use it? Tanya learned to the Raisa. Sukkah station, Sukkah shall call davar divrei meir. That Sukkah is in the plural station you should dwell, which means you'll have to make the schach out of anything. Rav Yehuda Eimer Sukkah Nohages Halabedal Minim Shabalulav. If I didn't know he's saying, I'll bring you a kal v'chaymer. We don't bring the lulav at night, only by day. Seemingly, says Rabbi Yehuda, the same thing should be by a sukkah. Interesting halacha. Should have to have the dalet minim for the sukkah. If your kal v'chaymer comes along, that initially it's going to be machmir, but then it comes to be mekel, like you see over here, that ends up as a kula, is not a good kal v'chaymer. So how can you say what you're saying? Let's turn over to Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph for one moment. Tomorrow's daf says the Gemara, loy matzah. Arbas, meaning if you didn't find the 4 minim, you should batel. But remember, every single stage Shavas Yamim, Sukkah shall call davar. Okay, and we'll pick up from over here, showing that the kal v'chaymer is not correct, as the Gemara just proves, and I will pick up from Ezra and Mir Hashem.